Hello and welcome back. As I discussed in the last video, I wanted to discuss the topic about the two versions of creation that are found in Genesis. There are a few things that I did not mention last time in the first account that I would like to bring out now, and that is in, yes, Genesis chapter 1 and verse 14, where the plants and whatnot were created, but then it says that in 14 that the lights, basically the sun and the moon, were created, and how, people like to say scientifically this isn't possible. Well, it is possible because, as I mentioned before, if you do, I don't want to say believe in a feminine God, but even maybe entertain the thought is more what I would say, then this feminine God. And just to make it easier for myself, I'm going to say mother. Okay. Just like there's father, the father, I'm going to say the mother or mother. Okay. Just to be clear. So it says in 14, and God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. And then it mentions to go on that there's the two great lights, one that rules the night and one that rules the day. So the reason why plants could flourish before the sun was even created, because mother is light. That is her light, just pure light. And that point's going to come in handy when I actually read Revelation about what happened in between the first and the second creation. Okay, so remember, this feminine God is pure, brilliant light. Okay. Another thing that I did not bring out was in the first creation, when the plants and, the seeds of the earth and whatnot, when God was saying, like in 29, it says, and God said, behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. So if you notice here, it definitely says that every tree with seed and its fruit you will have for food. There are no exclusions. Because think about it. Why would you create humans, give them all these things, and then make one tree, and say, oh, by the way, this one you can't eat from? Do you think that would be kind and loving? No. So that was the second thing I wanted to bring out. Another thing to notice, not just in the New World Translation, but also other translations of the Bible, is that the God in the first chapter or the first account of creation is mentioned as God. But as soon as you get to Genesis chapter 2 and verse 4, you notice here that it changes. In the New World Translation, it was at this point it changed to Jehovah, and in other translations, it's like Lord God. So Jehovah wasn't even mentioned as a God until this second creation. Okay? Another thing to note is that Mother, the original creator, can create from anything. She does not need anything physical or otherwise in order to create. Father does. He cannot create without having something either provided by mother or something that she had already made. That is why we see in the second account of creation that father actually had to use dust. And by that, what that dust really was DNA. So he needed DNA from previous humans in order to create. And he also needed to create that human, which was man or Adam, in order to create the woman, which is why he needed a rib from the woman. And most people don't think very much about this, but if you were the true Almighty God and you just created all of these things in the first creation from absolutely nothing, why would you need all of a sudden dust and a rib from the man that you created from the dust in order to create another human couple? It doesn't make sense. Another thing is that in the first creation, there was too much water and something needed to be done with it. So that's when, there's oceans and sea creatures and everything else. Yeah. But in the second creation, there was actually a lack of water to the point where, in order for water to come up from the ground, that was the only way to actually essentially water the vegetation that was created then. And there's a reason for that also. As I said, if there's two accounts of creation, one of mother and one of father, then why would there have to even be two creations? What happened in between? Well, in Revelation chapter 12, 1 through 14, I will read that account. And once again, I am going to be reading from the English Standard Version. So many don't really realize that this is an actual account of what happened in between mother's creation and father's creation. They see it as more symbolic than, something that actually could have happened. And I will explain this once I'm done reading it, okay? So bear with me. It's Revelation chapter 12, and I'm starting with 1. It says, "And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and was crying out in birth pains and the agony of giving birth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great dragon, with 7 heads, 10 horns, and on his heads 7 diadems." Just to be clear, this dragon, which is also known, sometimes it's serpent, sometimes it's dragon. It's usually said to be Satan, but to say this is going to be controversial, but it is what it is. This is actually Father, okay? So this great dragon is Father. His tail swept down a third of the stars of heaven and cast them to earth. Now, these stars are not literal stars. They're actually angels, spirit creatures. So he swept down a third of the spirit creatures with him. Okay. So he swept them down and cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she bore her child, he might devour it, because this child was a threat. She gave birth to a male child who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron, but her child was caught up to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God, in which she is to be nourished for 1,260 days. So basically, you can think of a woman giving birth and basically someone waiting there to take her child. The ordeal by itself is a lot, and then you have to actually fight a battle essentially. Um, and so once you're done with this battle, you actually have to rest. So that's what this is referring to. I don't want to get too into detail, but that's the simplest way I can explain it for now. Okay? Now, in Revelation 12 and verse 7, It says Satan thrown down to earth. Remember, Satan is the same as Father at this point, which it should be clear as I do more videos, but that is evident in the truth. It says, now war arose in heaven, Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon. And the dragon and his angels fought back. But he was defeated, and there was no longer any place for him in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent, who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. And I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brothers has been thrown down, who accuses them day and night before our God. And they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, for they loved not their lives even until death. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil has come down to you in great wrath, because he knows that his time is short. And when the dragon saw that he had been thrown down to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. But the woman was given the 2 wings of the great eagle, so that she might fly from the serpent into the wilderness, to the place where she is to be nourished for a time and times, and half a time. Okay, now this is important. All right. I know that other stuff is kind of wordy and not really understandable, but it's not important in the bigger scheme. Okay. But 15 is the serpent. Now remember, the serpent can also be referred to as the dragon, the devil, and regrettably Father. Okay? The serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman to sweep her away with a flood. But the earth came to the help of the woman, and the earth opened its mouth. Sorry. And the earth opened its mouth and swallowed the river that the dragon had poured from his mouth. Then the dragon became furious with the woman and went off to make war on the rest of her offspring, on those who keep the commandments of God. Now remember, God is mother, okay? The original creator. So the devil, dragon, father, went off to make war on the rest of her offspring, on those who keep the commandments of God or mother and hold to the testimony of Jesus. And he stood on the sand of the sea. Now, as I discussed before, mother is pure light. So one may think, how is water going to possibly hurt this all powerful being? Well, water is basically could be used as a weapon if you are pure radiant light, because water, especially when it's in those amounts, like you're taking all of the seas and the oceans and literally concentrating it on one huge light source. It interacts with water molecules and particles to cause loss of light, color changes, diffusion, and other effects. So, and also, I mean, I don't mean to get too much into physics, but also the more water or the deeper you go, um, light diminishes. So, in effect, it would literally be almost destroying her at a point. But it mentions that the earth came to help the woman. And I know most people don't think of the earth as a living thing, but its energy is actually feminine also. Um, so it did come to her defense, and that's when the earth actually sucked up all the waters, and the waters ended up underground in caverns, in wells, that type of thing. Which is why in the second part of creation, it mentions that the waters had come up from the ground in order to water the vegetation. Hopefully, I put that as simply as I could without being too scientific. Um, but yeah, but that's why in the second creation, there was a problem with water and also dryness because, well, we'll get to that in the next video maybe. That's why when Adam and Eve were ejected from the Garden of Eden, there were thorns and thistles and dry land. It was very, very arid. Not a good place for humans to thrive. So I think for today, that's going to be it. If any of you have any questions about what I'm saying, you can totally leave comments, questions, anything like that. And I will do my best to answer them if I can. Um, yeah. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to cover next time. I have to see where I want to go. I might um, say what the first human couples were like during the first creation, because I think that's important to realize too. Um, or maybe tell you mother and father's backstory. I don't know. But it's kind of like any other couple that, once we're loving and caring for each other, and then someone gets jealous and then insecure, and then there's competition, and it's no longer a loving relationship. Um, but yeah, that enough of that. I just wanted to say also, for all you ex Jehovah's Witnesses who are giving testimonies on YouTube or anywhere else, and you have relatives, parents, brothers, whoever, and you have free will to do whatever you want. This is just a suggestion. If you are saying things that would make them feel bad, betrayed, embarrassed, or ashamed, I just want to say that if you're really trying to make them wake up and really see the truth about their organization, you don't really want to put them in a position where they feel slighted, because instead of them being attracted to you, they're going to actually pull away and feel a certain way about you. Does that make sense? We basically want to be peaceable toward all people, even sorry, even those who have hurt us the most, because that is part of the healing process, is to still be kind to those who have not been kind to us and to just forgive them. Offer them graciousness, love, peace, because in the end, that's what's going to matter. Okay? Sorry this video was so long. I hope you have a good day, and hopefully I'll see you if you decide to join me in my next video. Okay? Take care.